Stop everything. This just happened. In the shadowed halls of the Capitol, where whispers turn into wars, Senate leaders have just confronted Donald Trump face to face in an explosive showdown that could shatter the fragile remnants of American political stability. The air was thick with tension, the kind that precedes a storm no one sees coming, but everyone feels in their bones. Picture this: Mitch McConnell, the grizzled veteran of countless battles, standing toe-to-toe with the former president, his voice steady but laced with an undercurrent of finality. Beside him, Chuck Schumer, eyes narrowed, representing the Democratic flank. But this wasn't just partisan theater. No, this was a bipartisan hammer dropping, a rare alignment of stars in a divided sky. The target, Trump himself, the man who has dodged more political bullets than anyone in modern history, triggered by a Supreme Court ruling earlier this morning that denied his latest appeal on election interference charges. The Senate convened an emergency session behind closed doors. It lasted barely an hour, but in those 60 minutes, the fate of a nation teetered on the edge. Decisions were made in hushed tones, with staffers ushered out and doors bolted shut. Timeline. Just 1 minute ago, as the clock struck the hour, leaks began pouring out from insiders who couldn't hold their silence any longer. Phones buzzed across Washington, alerts flashing on screens from the White House to the press corps. This confrontation wasn't scripted. It was raw, unfiltered fury meeting unyielding resolve. Trump, ever the showman, reportedly entered the room with his trademark bravado, suit impeccable, tie straight as an arrow. But what unfolded was no rally cheer. It was a reckoning. McConnell, sources say, laid it out plain. The games end here. Schumer echoed, citing the rule of law as non-negotiable. The room, a nondescript conference space in the Senate wing, became a pressure cooker. Voices rose, fingers pointed, and at one point, Trump slammed his fist on the table, demanding loyalty that no longer existed. This breaking event isn't just another headline. It's the spark that could ignite a firestorm. The Senate leaders didn't mince words. They demanded Trump step back from his relentless campaign to reclaim power, warning that his actions were eroding the very foundations of democracy. But Trump, defiant as ever, pushed back, accusing them of betrayal and weakness. The standoff ended with no handshake, no photo op, just a door slamming shut behind him as he stormed out. Now the ripples are spreading. Staffers in the halls whispered about the intensity, one describing it as like watching titans clash, but with the country's future as the arena. This action by the Senate leaders, you direct personal intervention, has just upended the political landscape. The target is clear. Trump's influence, his hold on the GOP base, his ability to rally crowds and bend narratives, triggered by that court ruling which stripped away his last layer of legal protection, opening the door to potential indictments that could bar him from office forever. The decision was made in that late-night meeting last evening, but the confrontation happened this morning, fresh and furious. As details emerge, it's evident this was coordinated. Calls between leaders across the aisle, a unity forged in crisis. The Senate, often paralyzed by gridlock, moved with uncharacteristic speed. Why now? Because the ruling wasn't just a legal footnote, it was a bombshell, affirming charges of conspiracy and fraud from the 2024 election cycle. Trump had appealed, claiming presidential immunity, but the justices in a 6-3 decision shut it down, stating no one is above the law. That triggered the Senate's response: confront him directly, urge him to concede the fight or face isolation. But Trump sources inside say laughed it off at first, then grew red-faced as the reality sank in. This is the breaking event that changes everything. From here, the dominoes fall. This is not routine procedure. This is not standard political conflict. This only happens when confidence collapses, when the veneer of unity cracks and reveals the chasms beneath. Institutional behavior now indicates a loss of patience, a shift to enforcement, preparation for force if words fail. The Senate's confrontation sends an unprecedented signal. The establishment is done playing defense. For years, Trump has navigated scandals like a ship through fog. But today, the fog lifted and the rocks are sharp. This signal reverberates through the corridors of power, from committee rooms to the Oval Office. Analysts are already calling it a watershed moment where the guardrails of democracy assert themselves against a force that has tested them to breaking. The leader move wasn't impulsive. It was calculated, born from months of behind-the-scenes maneuvering. Think tanks and legal experts had warned of this, a point where rhetoric gives way to action. Now, with the court's denial of his appeal, the Senate sees no choice but to intervene directly. This signal is loud, control is slipping from Trump's grasp, and the institutions are reclaiming it. Protection that once shielded him through party loyalty and legal delays is evaporating. Former allies are no longer defending him. Party leaders are hedging. Insiders distancing themselves in a betrayal that stings like a knife twist. Silence from key names like Lindsey Graham, once a vocal supporter, now conspicuously absent from the fray. The House GOP caucus, usually quick to rally, issued a bland statement about respecting processes, a far cry from the firebrand defenses of yore. Committees like the Judiciary and Oversight are mum, their chairs avoiding cameras. Private reactions are described as panic, with aides scrambling for damage control memos. One insider leaked, "It's every man for himself now." Public loyalty has been replaced by caution, vague tweets about unity without naming Trump, hedging bets, quiet exits from his orbit, fundraisers canceling, donors pulling back. The political meaning is clear. They see what is coming, a tidal wave of consequences that could drown them all if they cling too close. This betrayal turning point marks the fracture in the GOP, where Trump's MAGA base clashes with the institutional wing. McConnell in the confrontation reportedly said, "We've carried this far enough." Schumer pressed on the bipartisan cost, noting how Trump's defiance has alienated moderates and independents crucial for future elections. Trump, facing this united front, saw the writing on the wall but refused to read it. His response, a tirade about deep state conspiracies, but even that lacked its usual punch. Sources say the room felt the shift from idol to liability. This turning point isn't just personal, it's systemic. The Senate's action signals to lower courts and prosecutors that the path is clear for enforcement. No more stalling appeals. The denial was final. Betrayal from within the party amplifies this. Figures like Mike Pence, long silent, now subtly endorsing the move in private circles. Even international allies are watching, with European leaders quietly relieved at the pushback. But for Trump, this is isolation at its peak. His inner circle, thinned by years of turnover, now faces defections. One advisor anonymously told reporters, "The emperor has no clothes, and everyone's finally saying it." The unprecedented nature lies in the directness. Senate leaders don't typically stage interventions like this. It's reserved for crises of existential threat. Here, they view Trump's continued fight as just that, eroding faith in elections and institutions. The signal is unmistakable. The era of indulgence is over. As the day unfolds, expect more cracks. Perhaps resignations from his campaign team or leaks of internal memos showing the panic. This betrayal isn't just turning, it's accelerating, pushing the narrative from defense to survival. The powerful forces that once buoyed him are now moving against. And the confrontation was the first salvo in what promises to be a brutal endgame. This action activates a cascade of enforcement mechanisms that were dormant until this precise moment. The Supreme Court's morning denial wasn't merely a procedural setback. It removed the final shield, handing prosecutors and lower courts a green light to proceed without further delay. Possible outcomes now include contempt proceedings against any lingering attempts at obstruction, potential seizure of assets tied to campaign finance violations still under review, and even the looming shadow of arrest warrants should Trump fail to appear for scheduled depositions or hearings. The most seismic possibility, activation of the removal process under the 14th Amendment's disqualification clause, now bolstered by fresh judicial precedent. One move forces the next through automatic legal triggers. No discretion, no pause. Once the Senate leaders walked out of that confrontation room, the machinery began turning at full speed. Federal judges in multiple districts received urgent filings within the hour, citing the Senate's direct intervention as evidence of deteriorating public order and institutional trust. The cascade isn't hypothetical. It's already in motion. Behind closed doors, the Department of Justice has quietly reassigned resources, pulling senior attorneys from routine cases to focus exclusively on the Trump-related matters. Coordination is tight, almost surgical. Emails flagged, phones on secure lines, briefings delivered in windowless rooms. This suggests a deep institutional belief that resistance is weakening, that Trump's once iron grip on narrative and loyalty has frayed beyond repair. The strategy phase has shifted decisively to containment and isolation. Objective 1. Control the narrative before it spirals into chaos on social media and cable news. Objective 2. Prevent any escape routes, whether through pardons, now politically radioactive, foreign asylum rumors dismissed outright by allies, or last-ditch legislative maneuvers. Objective 3. Lock positions so that no single defector can derail the process. Insiders describe the mood in government buildings as grim determination mixed with cautious relief. One veteran staffer likened it to finally cutting the rope on a runaway train. Terrifying, but necessary. The Senate leaders' face-to-face wasn't symbolic. It was the final warning shot before the mechanisms engaged fully. McConnell reportedly told Trump, "You've left us no alternative," while Schumer added that the country could not afford endless appeals and deflections. Trump's response, according to multiple accounts, veered between rage and calculation. He threatened to rally his base in the streets to expose corrupt deals, but the leaders remained unmoved. They had already mapped the fallout. Market jitters if uncertainty drags on, security repositioning around key sites, diplomatic